Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm from the openDemocracy youth reporting team here at the World Forum for Democracy in Strasbourg. And I'm joined today by two people who are involved in a civic activism program in Northern Ireland. I have Paul Braithwaite. Paul is from the Building Change Trust, which is an organisation enabling democratic innovation projects in Northern Ireland. And we also have Allan Leonard, hello, who is the managing director of the Northern Ireland Foundation, and he's also an editor at Fact Check Northern Ireland. Thank you for joining us. Hi. So could we just start with you telling us a little bit about your respective organisations? If we go with you, Paul.
Sure. So Building Change Trust is an organisation based in Northern Ireland, and our job is really to promote and support innovation in the third sector in Northern Ireland. So deliberative democracy, I guess, is one of our themes, and we've been resourcing a series of experiments with deliberative democracy methods in Northern Ireland. So things like citizen juries and digital fact-checking, participatory card games, all kinds of different things, pop-up democracy. Right. So we've just been trying a few different things out. There hasn't been an awful lot done in this vein in Northern Ireland before, so it's a bit of a new thing. And then we're also working on open government, which is more an initiative at kind of the Northern Ireland regional level. So we're doing a few different things, really all looking to better connect citizens in Northern Ireland with decisions that are taken that affect their lives.
Fantastic stuff. Tell us a bit about your organisation.
Sure. The Northern Ireland Foundation was established about 8 years ago to promote a shared society in Northern Ireland. So we work in the realms of community relations and civic leadership. So, and in this case, we're using one of the tools here, digital fact-checking. So we work in partnership with another organization called Transformative Connections. And so we go out into local communities and we teach young and old alike about the values of critical thinking and checking out rumors before they spread.
Fantastic, thank you. So you're both connected to the Civic Activism programme in different ways. Could you tell us a bit about your involvement?
Yeah, sure. Well, so I suppose we set up the Civic Activism programme, and we worked with a couple of organisations based in Great Britain involved in democratic society to pull together some ideas for methods, basically deliberative democracy methods that had been tried around the world but never in Northern Ireland. And then so we developed a kind of a toolkit which is online, and then we had a bit of money to give some grants out to local NGOs, third sector organisations in Northern Ireland. So we essentially gave people the opportunity to try something out in a local context and apply it to any issue. So we've a whole range of projects working on different issues, things like welfare reform, for example, renewable energy, rural transport. So each of these methods is applied to a particular issue locally. So we funded so we gave out some grants for those, and then we put in place also kind of some support for organisations to engage with the methods themselves. So we're working again with Involve in the Democratic Society to support the project. So we're trying to, obviously each project is its own individual independent project, but we're trying to connect them all together as well, and we're trying to basically build a bit of momentum in Northern Ireland around deliberative democracy because we think it's much needed.
Fantastic. And Allan, I understand you're one of those projects. Could you tell us a bit about that?
We're one of the beneficiaries of the Civic Activism program. So the Northern Ireland Foundation and Transformative Connections, we work together. And in regards to the digital fact-checking, the foundation, we provide a public website that's available for anyone to use. We publish articles, so we have people researching and finding out suspicious claims or things that have been said a bit skeptical. Whereas Transformative Connections goes out into local communities and statutory agencies, and they provide training, but it's fun training. There's a bit of quizzes involved, just to make it lighthearted. But there's a serious side, of teaching people what confirmation bias is and selection bias. But we don't use the words in the training, but that's the lessons that they get from it.
Right, thank you. So Northern Ireland, what is the context that you're working in there? What is the state of deliberative and participatory democracy as you see it?
Well, I suppose a lot of people know a little bit about the history of Northern Ireland. Obviously, we kind of have transitioned out of a period of conflict. So we had our peace agreement in 1998 onwards. So I suppose without, rehashing all of that, the general context from the perspective of democracy, in my view, is one where the population is very relieved to have moved on from the period of conflict. And there's essentially been a very long honeymoon period for our institutions. So we had devolved government that was set up. So obviously that was an advance of democracy in many ways. We had our local Northern Ireland regional institutions established, and for the first time the two main political blocs have been sharing power. So that's obviously a positive. But there is, over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, been a growing sense of frustration and disengagement between citizens and those institutions. and you find that in opinion polls, and the institutions have managed to stop the violence, but not really push Northern Ireland very far along the road to what you might think of as a more normal society. So there are still some quite fundamental blockages in Northern Ireland from the perspective of democracy. The lack of a deliberative culture is, in my view, one of the key problems, and also potentially one of the key solutions to moving us on to the stage of a more mature democracy. We still have two very dominant political narratives, which are both very tightly controlled within communities. So, everybody, or not everybody, but the vast majority of people see themselves as being part of one or other communal bloc, and with that comes a whole set of beliefs around a whole range of issues that really aren't subjected to an awful lot of scrutiny or debate. And you don't find, although you find it more and more these days, particularly among young people flipping from one side to the other or changing their views based on deliberation. So we see some small signs of progress, but really we want to try and, I suppose, get a better engagement going between citizens, politicians and government, because we think that's the key to resolving some of the outstanding issues. Sometimes politicians are too scared to take the big decisions themselves because they're scared what will happen in the next election if they break from the communal narrative, whereas you find often among citizens the attitudes are actually much more nuanced. And so I think if you engage citizens in around a lot of these issues, like our education system is chronically divided, for example, and there are whole issues around academic selection and so on, and people very much stick to their black and white views of that situation in the political domain. But if we were to involve citizens more deeply and more directly, I think we would find new and innovative solutions coming out for those things. So I think we're at the start of a long game in Northern Ireland where we need to inject more deliberative capacity into the system, and we're in a small way trying to contribute to that.
Thank you. It was a wonderfully insightful contribution. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, yes. I would like to say in regards to Northern Ireland, we obviously have the peace and people are aware of that, but many people think that Northern Ireland is fixed, it's solved, and it's not. We're definitely still a society in transformation. So these programs here where we can go out to the disenfranchised, the cynical, those who feel that they haven't benefited from the peace process, it's very important to listen to them, address their concerns, and to give them tools that they can use so they feel that they're being used by some of the politicians, to ensure that they're not being used, that they can check for themselves, some of the falsehoods and rumors that get spread on social media and the like. So there's still plenty of work to do, and we're very grateful to Building Teacher Trust for enabling us to do some of that work.
Fantastic. I mean, this Civic Activism program, it's been ongoing for a short while now. Have you seen any learning or any successes that you'd like to share? Yeah,
well, we're still in the middle of most of the projects, but so we've seen some, small successes at local level. One of the projects which is already finished was around education planning. So it was in one particular local area within Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland has a divided education system, so essentially we have one system which is run by the state. It's the state's education system. We have one which is under the auspices of the Catholic Council for Maintained Schools, and then we have a very small integrated education sector. And so there's a lot of concern about duplication of education services in local areas. We also often have a lot of vacant school places, and some people would argue that we have far too many schools. But citizens, parents, and students are almost never really engaged properly in educational planning. So one of the projects was to pilot a new process. So we funded the Integrated Education Fund, who did a sort of a version of a community audit around education planning in one particular area. So they took a poll of attitudes to all the various different aspects of education provision amongst the population. They then had a series of deliberative workshops and then polled people again to see how attitudes had shifted. And that has sort of garnered the attention of the Education Authority now, so they're working with them and are hoping that in a more official way can maybe roll out a process like that in another area. So that's a small success. That's really what we're going to do, try and pilot methods that can then be used not only by the non-governmental sector but also by departments and public agencies. So that's a kind of, if you can achieve that with a few other methods, then it will have been a big success for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic that you're already seeing that, considering this is a program of experimentation and a bit of a new exploration here in Northern Ireland. So yeah, it's fantastic that you have that to report already.
Yes, and for us, we're, in addition to the couple hundred of people we've directly trained out in local communities, one thing we're pleased about is the fact that we've got we're established and we have credibility in regards to our Fact Check NI website. Also, the European Union referendum campaign, where we managed to, as best we could, kind of to lay out some of the facts or most likely consequences of a decision either way was very popular. And we've learned how to use social media itself to get the word about using Facebook and Twitter, using the very tools that where we find local people using, we're using to our advantage as well.
Fantastic. Really great stuff. You're at the World Forum for Democracy. What are you hoping to get out of it?
We've brought a group over from Northern Ireland, so there's representatives from a few different projects have come over. So at one level, it's simple, a bit of inspiration, really. I think this whole deliberative democracy thing is relatively new to us in Northern Ireland, and we're conscious that there's a big international community. There's lots of experiences to learn from. So really, I think it's the very practical stuff I'm looking for is just ideas. It's just projects that we can connect with, methods we can replicate, and then also putting all that within a broader framework of where is this going, how does this fit into the evolution of European democracy and the international movements around the evolution of democracy towards more deliberative models. So a bit of inspiration and some practical links, really.
Excellent. Well, you're certainly in the right place for that, I hope.
Yeah.
For me, there's already been interesting discussions about some of the things that have been said in the media in regards to populism and extremism. And I think what I wanted to get out of attending this conference here is to meet people who are actually having to deal with some of these issues and to see if there can be an exchange of knowledge and experiences with some of the work that we're doing in Northern Ireland.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today and telling us about your experiences in Northern Ireland.
Thank you.
If people wanted to find out about your projects, how would they do that? Just quickly to end.
Well, you can go to the Building Change Trust website, which is just buildingchangetrust.org, or you can follow me on Twitter, which is @PaulBCT.
And for myself, it's factcheckni.org or northernireland.foundation or @factcheckni.
Great. Well, be sure to check out those links. Thank you for joining us both.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.